All right, so let's get into our mailbag. So the first question that we have here, oh, look at that, guys. We get to talk a little bit more Cowboys. Now that the Cowboys have signed Dak Prescott to a long-term deal, how do you see this impacting Dak's status as a fantasy QB? And does this also improve the fantasy stock of Zeke, who is struggling mightily last season? This is from our listener, Joe. Frank, what do you got on this one?
It's a good question, Joe. I'm sure, as most Cowboys fans know, Dak was the number 2 quarterback in fantasy in 2019, and he was number 1 in points per game last year. And I don't see why there's any reason to worry about his ankle injury that ended his year a little soon. He had a lot of time to heal up. So as an owner of Dak myself in one of my dynasty leagues, I'm excited for him to get back into the swing of things, just make use of the weapons that he has. I can really see him being, not even a top 5. I can even see him being, he could have a chance to be number 1, QB1 this year. And then now that the Cowboys got their quarterback under contract, I think they're going to focus heavily on the O-line and defense. And I think that's just going to help him even more. It increases the fantasy value, not only of Zeke, like you asked, but I think the whole offense, Cooper, Gallup, Lamb, they're all gonna splurge off of having Dak back. And just some numbers on Zeke. Last year with Dak, he had 87.7 fantasy points in those 5 games that Dak played. In the other games, 11 games, he had 84 fantasy points. So I think that puts it right there. When Dak's there, Zeke is not the only thing on that offense. So it's just going to help Zeke get more open, and he's going to have a fantastic fantasy season, I believe. Get back on track.
I hope you're right about Zeke. I have him in a couple of leagues too. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I was in a few startups this off season with Chris, and the last 2 we did, I took Zeke, and I got him. I don't know, Chris. What was it? 3-4 rounds,
3rd round,
something like that. And I kept looking at Chris and messaging him, and I'm like, how is he still here at this round? And I know he did really bad this year. I get it, but he's still only 25 years old.
Yeah.
And he's the guy. Yes, Pollard might eat into that, but I mean, they're going to have to make a decision on Pollard soon, because I think he might end up going somewhere else just because he's too good to stay there. But Zeke's their guy. They're not going to do anything with that right now. And with the Zeke and Dak connection there, they don't want to make anyone unhappy for the next couple of seasons. So,
yep.
But that should be good. All right, question number 2. What is the Packers' biggest need going into free agency? And this is from Vinny, a fellow podcaster who has a show called Leading the Pack. And Sam, this one was actually addressed to you directly, so why don't you take away on this one?
There you go. Well, Vinny, thanks for the question, buddy, and keep moving on in that podcast. Give it a listen. It's a great podcast. He gets on there and rants and tells you his thoughts. Pretty cool. So give it a listen if you can. After you listen to ours, of course, the whole way through. Yeah, getting to the question. Listen, there's no doubt the Packers are a great team. They had a great year, 13-3, conference finals, league MVP, QB, all that, right? So, and they're solid on both sides of the ball. So when you look at, their needs, really, the side that I kind of lean towards more than anywhere else would be on the defensive line. So stopping the run seemed to be one of their biggest problems, and it's not even a real problem. Like, they're pretty solid even at that side. Ranked in the middle, 13th, 14th. I think they allowed like 1,805 yards last year with 16 TDs rushing. So it's really just kind of plugging up those holes on the defensive line that's going to get them to that next level. On the offensive side of the ball, they're pretty. And now that they have Aaron Jones signed up, I think that solidifies their run game. Can they use an extra wide receiver to give it some depth? Absolutely. But is it completely necessary? I don't know. I mean, I think that, if MVS had some sparks throughout the year, there's a few players on that team that can step it up. And now, if Tanyan is their guy as a tight end, that's pretty solid, right? So they could kind of fire on all pistons there and do a good job. But it's really, their free agency needs to be focused, in my opinion, on the defensive line, on the defensive end of the ball, even on the linebacker position. They have to look for some of these guys that are out there. Tomlinson, Harris from Denver, perhaps even a Sue or somebody from T-Bay. Even though he's 34, he could give that that leadership. No, you're shaking your head, Chris. No, you don't think so.
He's not going to go there and play with Aaron Rodgers, man. Come on.
You don't know. I mean, listen, I'm just
try to
blood there.
It's all about money, man. But you never know, right? It's all about money. You never know. But what I'm trying to say is they're really close to making it to the big show, right? And if they could shore up those holes on that line, I think that could help them get there. It's my opinion.
Yeah, I like it. I think they need another good corner, and with the signing of Aaron Jones, they had to let go of Kirksey, so they're going to need some linebackers to beef up the middle of the field.
That's exactly right.
And as always, Green Bay, they could use a nice young shiny wide receiver.
Yeah,
I think any wide receiver at this point, right?
Anything to help, right?
Yeah.
just a number 2. He could even be a number 2, 3-ish, just something to.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, I think that they're the fact is that when you have Devontae there, everybody else pales in comparison, right? Like, I mean, that's part of the reason that these guys aren't stepping up. But like I said, MVS, he can show up. There was some sparks there last year that might be there. But yeah, I agree. I think a wide receiver could help, but they won games with the offense that they had on the field. Is my point, right? And if they need to get to that next level, the defense is where they need to spend their money.
Exactly. I agree with that 100%.
Well, we'll see what happens, but that should hopefully answer the question.
Vinny, let me know what you think, buddy. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. You're the leading the pack guy, so you let us know.
All right, next question. With all the movement at tight end, who do you have as the top 10 for next season? And this comes from Michael C. from a group chat that we're part of called the Fantasy Football Edge on Facebook. Chris, I think you're taking this one.
Yeah, I broke down a bunch of the tight ends this year coming into the season. I like to when I make my rankings, when I make my list, I like to break them down into tiers, so that helps me with my drafting and my targeting certain tight ends. Of course, at the top you have the tier 1 tight ends. Number 1 obviously being Travis Kelce. The guy is just, he's putting up wide receiver 1 numbers. He's a little on the older side, but he's got to be your top target at tight end. If that's your position of interest, that's the guy you're going to want to target. For me, at number 2 in the tier 1 of tight ends, I got Darren Waller, just a little bit ahead of Kittle. I think Kittle's injury problems might be a little bit of a concern coming in, and I like the package that the Raiders run with Waller during the game. So, and then number 3 is Kittle. I mean, really, Waller and Kittle, you can flip them around. It's pretty much subjectiveness at that point. But all these tight ends are stud lock tight ends. They're the kind of tight ends that would make Jennifer Lopez jealous, whom, by the way, with her recent breakup of Alex Rodriguez, is only 2 rings behind Tom Brady. So she's
different rings, though. Different rings.
She's
but
there.
I get it.
She's there. Now coming into the tier 2 on the 21 season, all these guys, they're great. They're bright. They got talent. They're just maybe missing the target share, or they're a little bit of injury prone. At number 4, I got T.J. Hawkinson out of Detroit. I don't think much will change, and with an old tight end coach and Dan Campbell coming in, I think they're going to shape the offensive package around him that's really going to bring him up to that next level. Out of all these guys here, he's probably the one guy that I think that might be able to reach that tier 1 output if he can stay on the field, if he can get the targets. And then from there, number 5, I got Mark Andrews. Number 6, I got Noah Fant. Number 7, I got Robert Tonyan, who's due for I think he's due for quite a bit of a regression, considering his target share and the amount of balls he was that were thrown his way. if you take into account that and the amount of touchdowns he's caught, I don't think he's going to produce that again going into the 2021 season. And then at number 8, I got rookie tight end superstar. I think he's going to finish in the top 10 in tight ends. Kyle Pitts out of Florida. I think he's going to be a stud. He's touted to be the next top tier tight end. He might get bypassed in some of your startups or some of your drafts. So if you can grab him right after Waller, Kittle, Hawkinson, I wouldn't mind taking him over Mark Andrews, Noah Fant, and Robert Tonyan if he's touted to be that next big guy, that next tier 1 tight end. As a dynasty asset, he's gonna be the guy. And then to round it out, I got Mike Gesicki out of Miami and Evan Ingram out of New York. So really, from 5 to 10, it's like a NASCAR race. They're all battling position every week. Noah Fant can go from 6 to 9. Gesicki can go from 9 to 5. So that's my top 10 going into the 2021 season.
I agree with pretty much all of those. There's a couple that I kind of looked at and saw, I thought maybe these guys have an outside chance. For me, Logan Thomas is an interesting pick to look at too. I think he did a really good job with Washington. We'll see what happens with Alex Smith. I think that it really played well. They had a really good scheme for him. But we'll see what happens with the QB, and I think he could have another solid season. And one guy that we kind of look at, and it's our boy Gronk. I don't know, man. Can he be that guy? I mean, I think that they're going to spread the ball a lot in T-Bay, but when it gets into the red zone, there are fewer people that Tom Brady trusts more than Gronk, right? So from a production standpoint on the TD side, I think Gronk's going to be one of his main targets within the 20-yard line. So we'll see. But those are kind of outside chances. But I don't disagree with any of the 10 that you said for sure.
Yeah, one of the other questions about Logan Thomas, I'm going to get into him a bit after here. But I had some other notable mentions. Depending where he goes, Jonnu Smith finished as tight end 10 last season. A lot of talk that he's been tied to Seattle, which would be a great fantasy option for him because of the quick tight end that he is. And some of the other guys that are going to be thrust into starting positions, like Tyler Higbee with the Rams.
I was going to say him too.
Yeah, Bryce Hopkins with the Rams, and Adam Troutman with the Saints with the release of Jared Cook and Josh Hill. Yep. These 3 tight ends can be like late round value guys for you that can put up those tight end 2 numbers. So just keep a lookout. If you're going 0 tight end and you're missing out on these top 10 guys, some of these other guys here you might be able to grab late, which will still hold good value.
For sure.
Yeah, so I think the moral of all of that is after the top 3, it's really a crapshoot. You could take literally the 15th guy and probably still get the same numbers as the 4th guy.
Yeah, it's very tight.
So, but yeah, I like your list there. There are a few that I like. I did want to talk about Kyle Pitts a little bit. I know that everyone's talked about him being the guy, but there have been other the guys coming out as tight ends that didn't do very well, such as an OJ Howard. Even Hawk didn't have a great first season. I know he's looking like he's the guy right now, but his first season in Detroit wasn't the greatest after that one game he had.
Game was huge,
There's Njoku out of Cleveland, another one that was big when he was drafted. So be a little hesitant on the first season for a tight end, depending on where he goes. I'd watch that. I know that's a bold prediction to have him at 7, but then again, because of this tight end conundrum of after 3, it really doesn't. You could be within 4 points of 4 to 15 for all we know. But just watch the rookie tight ends out of the gate. I think that one could be something that might hurt some people in fantasy this year because they draft him a little high.
Yeah, I guess it depends. Like we talked about this too, like where he lands, right? So if they use him in a traditional tight end role, I could see that happening. But I think like when you got a weapon like that and you change the scheme around to fit that weapon, it could be a different story. Like he could be a wide receiver. Like, so that's, it
Pretty
really
much is.
depends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
this is what I
Yeah,
mean, right?
he's
So
a much better athlete than those other guys. That's for
absolutely.
Definitely, yeah.
Absolutely.
Never dropped the pass in the end zone in college.
Yep.
So he's got hands. He's got the length. He's got the wingspan. He's got everything you need. If he's there, I'm taking him.
Not before
Fair
I
enough.
take 'em.
I just wanted to put that out there because it does, like I said, the history of tight ends is
Sure.
it takes them a few
Fair
years
enough.
before they turn into that superstar. So
Yep.
let's go to our next question. So this one is, how high do you rank Matt Stafford and how low do you rank Jared Goff this coming season? This is from Randy from a group chat, the Fantasy Football Talk on Facebook group that we have. And I think, Frank, you're taking this one.
Yeah, it's only fitting. It's a good question, Randy. Matt Stafford spent his career with one of the worst organizations in the league. I don't got to tell you guys that.
Who's that?
I can't say.
Which team? Which one?
What team was that? Which organization?
Anyways, he's always had talent around him at the skill positions, though. Whether it was Calvin, Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones, Hawkinson, it barely ever translated to wins in the scoreboard. But he always had good fantasy turnouts. With the Rams, he finally gets a genius offensive mind to call the shots. Sean McVay's going to have an elite arm at quarterback who can make every throw on the field. And not to mention, he's finally going to have a legitimate running game to keep defenses off balance. McVay dialed play action on 33% of the Rams' plays last year, compared to the Lions' 24%. And on those play action passes, Stafford completed 60% of his passes and averaged 11 air yards per throw. By comparison, Goff only averaged 6.7 yards per throw. So, with an increase in play action calls alone, should just bode well for Stafford's 2021 fantasy outlook. You can expect McVay to be aggressive, opening up the playbook with Stafford at the center, which should just push him into a top 10 fantasy quarterback contention. As for Goff, I think his ADP is somewhere around 18 in the standard league. So, I think he's going to end up finishing fantasy quarterback 15 to 25, somewhere in that range. So the Lions aren't going to be good next year. They don't have an offense.
Took the words right out of my mouth, buddy.
So, they're not going to be good at all. So it's going to be interesting to watch the draft to see if the Lions could even grab a Chase or Smith, or a Waddle.
Hope not.
To give him some kind of fantasy value. But it's also interesting to see, what happens if Justin Fields, Trey Lance, or Zach Wilson falls to 7 and catches their eye. So, if that happens, Goff might not even be the starter by the end of the season. So it's kind of risky. I think it's best for Goff just to wait until after the draft to make a decision on him.
All right. Well said. I know that was hard to put some of those words out there to the live audience, but thank you for being honest and
keeping it real.
Yeah.
Keeping it real.
Let's get into our next one. This one was a very specific question. So this is in a Dynasty Superflex League. I have 1.9 and 2.4. Which rookies do you think will still be there? And this is from Stuart from Fantasy Football Gurus on our Facebook chat as well. Now, he also gave me a little more information. His QBs are really dry right now. He's got Baker Mayfield and Gardner Minshew. So he's looking at to see what he could draft in his Superflex League with those picks and who will be there. So you might want to. Sorry, I didn't give that to you before, Chris.
Yeah,
but,
that would have helped me out.
I thought about it after when I read it.
Useless.
Well, it's okay. Tell him who's going to be there, and then tell him maybe who he should look for.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into determining who you want and who's going to be there. I could tell you who's probably going to be there, but now that I got the information on what you need, I can tell you the way to kind of go. Right now, so the way I did it was I went through a bunch of mock drafts and tried to average out who was going to be there at the 109 and 204 position. The consensus at QB, which is a position of need to you, is Mac Jones and Trey Lance. Now, the only issue with these two guys is one of them probably is not going to be a starter right away. Maybe even both of them. So if you're looking, I know you're looking for a quarterback, but if you can maybe trade back, if you could trade the 109 for someone that needs a running back or a top wide receiver for a QB3 or a QB2, that might be something that you want to do, or buy low somewhere else. I don't know if at 109 in your position you want to draft a guy that's not necessarily starting right away, but for me, around that spot when I was working it all out, QBs were Mac Jones and Trey Lance. And at the wide receiver spot, you're probably looking at, because of the rise of Devonta Smith, you're going to get some great value wide receivers dropped to you at the 109. I had Jalen Waddle, Rashad Bateman, or Rondale Moore, all great options. They're going to be great options in fantasy. So if a wide receiver is a position in need, that's going to be where one of those three is going to be where you want to go. For running back, there wasn't really any of them that were really gonna drop to you at the 109 outside the big three of Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, and Javonte Williams. You might get a Hubbard at the 109, a Hubbard, Michael Carter, or Kenny Gainwell, but you're almost guaranteed to get one of those guys at the 204. So at the 109, you're gonna want to take a more viable option at the wide receiver or QB, if by any chance, because other guys in your league also need wide receivers or quarterbacks, and a Travis Etienne or a Javonte Williams falls to you at the 109, I would really consider taking one of those guys. And also Kyle Pitts has been, his ADP's around 107 to 109, so tight end's not really a position that you're going to want, but keep an eye out on teams that, you know, are after Kyle Pitts, and so you might use that to your advantage to trade back or move the pick to gain a QB. At the 204, like I said, you might be able to grab Hubbard, Kenny Gainwell, or Michael Carter at the RB spot. One of the wide receivers might fall to you there. You also have the options of Kadarius Toney, Tylan Wallace, or Amon-Ra St. Brown. But just don't tie yourself to the ADP. If there's a guy that you're high on, don't be hesitant to pick your guys. You don't want to pick a guy just because his ADP is high and then you're not happy with his output or stuff like that. You know, dynasty leagues, you're going to want the guys that you like. At the end of the day, you're going to want the guys that you like and you're going to want them on your team. At the 204, you might actually get a QB drop to you. It's a pretty deep QB class, so depending on where some of these guys drop, the starting QBs are going to be picked early, and some of these other QBs that might not be starting right away might drop down to the 204, so you might get a Mac Jones or a Trey Lance drop to you at 204. If that's the case, then that's where you take your quarterback.
Good question, Mr. Katz.
Yeah, that was well put, Chris. I like that there. So you got some options there. Hopefully that helps you when it comes down to drafting. And but from what we look at, you do need a quarterback bad.
Yeah.
But as Chris said, don't go reaching. If you can get something else or maybe even trade down, that might help. So, but with that, guys, that was our first mailbag. I think we did really well. We answered a lot of questions. So thank you guys for listening and have a good night.